For 3 years, I dreamed of this journey, to walk in the shadow of Mount Kailash, to touch the sacred waters of Lake Manasarovar. What unfolded was more than a pilgrimage. It was the universe whispering, connecting strangers into family and guiding me to silence I didn't know that I carried. It all began in Kathmandu, the city of prayer wheels and incense, where the air itself feels ancient. As I prepared to leave behind the familiar, I carried both excitement and quiet weight of 3 years of waiting. Then the universe stepped in. Through a simple introduction, I met Rupesh Modi from Om Namah Shivaya. My husband and I connected with him instantly. Soon he introduced us to others traveling from Chicago. Though we had just met, it felt as if we had known each other forever. From our very first call, we were already family. It was divine, the magic of the universe at work. The journey to Kailash is not simple. Hours of driving across rough roads, high passes, and endless skies. At the border, patience was tested. The thin air pressed against us, reminding us that nothing worth seeking is ever easy. Yet, through every mile, laughter and togetherness carried us forward. Crossing the border into China felt like stepping into another world. Immigration took time. We waited for 4 long hours.
Okay, we're going into China right now. Crossing the bridge going into China from Nepal. It's a long trip. There's our guide helping us.
We were waiting patiently with smiles on our face, with understanding. The wind carried both stillness and uncertainty.
This is the border. We're on the Nepal side. That's the China side, and we're getting ready to go there.
Once cleared from immigration, our journey resumed. The road ahead was long, rugged, and unpredictable. There were police stops, checkpoints, and roadblocks from construction. Hours of waiting on empty stretches of highway. But through it all, something beautiful unfolded. We laughed, shared stories, and found comfort in the simplicity of being together, with nature and with one another. Patience became our practice, and connection became our reward. Our first stop was the city of Nilam, resting quietly at 12,300 feet above sea level. The air was thin, crisp, and new to our lungs. We stayed overnight, giving our bodies time to acclimate to the altitude, and our minds time to slow down. The next morning began with a bowl of hot, spicy soup. Simple, comforting, and exactly what we needed before getting back on the road. With renewed energy and a sense of wonder, we continued our ascent towards the sacred land. As we drove higher, the landscape began to change, vast, untouched, and sacred. The scenery was something a camera could never truly capture. No photograph could hold the feeling of being there, surrounded by majestic mountains and endless skies. I found myself lost in the view, unable to take my eyes off the window of our van, as if the horizon itself was calling us forward. Along the way, we stopped at mighty Brahmaputra River, a sacred lifeline flowing through the heart of Tibet. The river originates from the Kailash ranges of Himalayas. Its waters simmered under the vast Himalayan sky, ancient and alive. We paused to pray, to offer gratitude for the journey, for safe passage, for the power of nature that humbles and sustains us. Standing by its banks, I felt the stillness of centuries. We stopped for the night in the city of Saga, resting at altitude of 15,223 feet. Saga is a small yet significant town along the pilgrim's route to Kailash, surrounded by rugged mountains and endless open plains. Here, travelers pause to rest, to breathe, and to let their bodies adjust to the thin Himalayan air. It's a place where the sky feels closer and time slows down. Traveling with us was a team of Nepali cooks who prepared our meals along the way. Every evening, they welcomed us with warmth, laughter, and the comforting aroma of home-cooked food. In the freezing winds and high altitude, their kindness felt like sunshine. Once you're in the care of Nepali people, you'll never go hungry, and you'll never go without a smiling face to talk to. The night in Saga, surrounded by simple joy and genuine care, I realized the spirit of the journey isn't only in reaching Kailash, but in the people who walked beside you, nourishing you, and remind you that love travels quietly through every shared meal and every smile. And then Manasarovar. The moment the lake appeared, time seemed to have paused. Its waters simmered like a mirror holding the sky. Here at over 15,000 feet, every breath felt like prayer. As we stepped out of our van and walked towards the long-awaited lake, the heavens themselves seemed to welcome us. A little drizzle began to fall, a gentle shower of blessings from the Lord. As I entered the water and offered prayers, just then a rainbow arched across the sky, as if the divine had painted a promise above us. My time stood still. A deep calm filled my heart. All the exhaustion of the journey dissolved into peace. Pilgrims have said that bathing in these waters purifies lifetimes. But for me, just standing there, feeling the rain, the rainbow, and the stillness of Manasarovar was enough to feel completely blessed. As we completed the sacred circle of Manasarovar, we arrived in Darchen, a humble settlement at 15,231 feet, lying at the very foot of Mount Kailash. Darchen is the gateway to the great pilgrimage, the Kailash Kora, the sacred trek that circles the mountain of the gods. Here pilgrims gather, hearts filled with devotion, in anticipation, ready to walk the path that sages and seekers have followed for centuries. Standing there with Mount Kailash towering before us, I felt both awe and surrender, as if the mountain itself was silently inviting us to the most sacred journey of all. In the stillness, I found myself. The mountain did not speak in words, but in silence. I shared laughter with fellow pilgrims. In the tears we shed without explanation. In the deep knowing that some journeys are written for us long before we take the first step. My journey came to a pause here at Darchen, the gateway to Mount Kailash. My body pushed beyond its limits, could no longer sustain the altitude. The oxygen levels dropped, and I knew I had reached the point where surrender was wiser than struggle. But even in that moment, my heart was filled because I was blessed to have come this far. To stand before the sacred Mount Kailash and receive its darshan was a gift beyond measure. I believe that the Lord has a reason for everything. Sometimes the journey we imagine is not the one meant for our feet, but for our spirit. From here, my teammates continued onwards to north face of Kailash and the Nandi Parvat. This is where the mountain's energy is said to be at its most powerful. As I watched the sacred flags flutter in the wind, I felt peace. Every color, every movement of those flags carries a prayer. Blue for the sky, white for the air, red for fire, green for water, and yellow for earth. Together, they symbolize harmony. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. A reminder to cultivate love and compassion within, and to let the love flow outward to all beings. Standing here beneath the gaze of Kailash, I realized that even though my journey stopped here, my pilgrimage was complete. Because sometimes the truest darshan happens not in motion but in stillness.
Namah Shivaya. Karma, Dharma और पवित्रता कैलाश मानसरोवर यात्रा.
Then came the Parikrama, the sacred walk around Mount Kailash. Each step was a dialogue between body and spirit. The air grew thin, the terrain grew steep, and silence pressed deeper. But in that silence, something opened. The mountain stood immovable and vast, as if reminding everyone that the path is never about conquering. It is about surrender. Day 1 began from Darchen. Some rode on yaks and horses, their silhouettes moving gently against the winds of the high Himalayas. Others chose to walk, each footstep a quiet action of devotion on the rocky, uneven path. The road wound through barren valleys and streams born of melting snows, where the only sounds were the crunch of gravel and the whisper of prayer wheels turning. After nearly 6 hours, the group stopped at a small tea stall, a simple hut offering warm tea and moment of rest. As the evening cold descended, they reached a cluster of mud houses where they stayed overnight. 3 pilgrims shared each small room, bundled tightly in layers, their breaths fogging in the cold mountain air, hearts steady and full of anticipation for the sacred road ahead. Outside, the stars shimmered above Mount Kailash, and the mountain seemed to breathe in silence, watching over every soul who had come seeking its grace. Day 2 began before dawn. The air was crisp and still, as if the entire valley waited in reverence. Slowly, the first light of morning brushed across the distant peaks, and then the sun rose over Mount Kailash. Golden rays spilled across its face, turning stone into fire and silence into song. The mountain glowed, radiant, alive, as though divinity itself had taken form before our eyes. For a few sacred moments, time stood still. The sight of golden Kailash took the pilgrim's breath away, a reminder that the divine reveals itself in stillness, not through grandeur, but through light. As the golden glow softened into morning, the pilgrims began their second day of the Parikrama, the steep and sacred climb towards Dolma-La Pass, rising to more than 18,000 feet. The air thinned, each breath became a prayer, each step an offering. The trail turned rugged and narrow, winding between cliffs of snow and rock, where the only sound was the crunch of footsteps and the whisper of the wind. Some pilgrims walked while others rode yaks up the steep rocky slopes. The higher the pilgrims climbed, the narrower and rougher the trail became. Stones sifting beneath each step, cold wind biting against the skin. When the incline grew too sharp, everyone had to dismount yaks, could go no further. From there, the pilgrims continued on foot, carefully, slowly, leaning on walking sticks for balance, swaying gently against the wind, eyes fixed on the distant summit. The descent was even more demanding. The path steep, uneven, and scattered with loose rock. Every step required full attention. Faith became the footing. It was not a journey measured in miles, but in surrender, in the quiet release of everything heavy within the heart. Along the way, my friends saw followers of the ancient Bon tradition performing their parikrama not by walking, but by full body prostration, stretching forward, bowing to the earth, rising, stepping, and bowing again. Their bodies rolled along the mountain's base, each movement a sacred rhythm of devotion. Watching them was humbling, a living reminder that the true pilgrimage is not about distance, but about dissolving the self into the sacred. As my teammates reached the top of Dolma-La Pass, the wind roared, carrying with it thousands of fluttering prayer flags. Blue for sky, white for air, red for fire, green for water, yellow for earth. The 5 elements dancing together in harmony. The mountain was wrapped in color, every flag a prayer released into eternity. Here, pilgrims pause to let go, to offer their burdens to the mountain and to be renewed. It is said that crossing Dolma-La Pass is like crossing from old self to the new, a passage through death and into rebirth. In that moment, the mountains seem to whisper, "The path is never about conquering, it's about surrender." Beyond the winds of Dolma-La Pass lies a sight that humbles every pilgrim. Gauri Kund, the lake of compassion. At more than 18,000 feet, nestled in the shadow of Mount Kailash, this sacred turquoise pool glistens like a jewel dropped from the heavens. Its waters are said to have been formed by the tears of goddess Parvati, Gauri Devi. In her deep meditation and love for Lord Shiva, pilgrims believe that a glimpse of Gauri Kund washes away lifetimes of impurity, and that to touch or bathe in its icy water is to be blessed by the union of divine love and purity itself. The descent to the lake is steep and covered with crystal blue ice. My teammates stood there in silence, watching the sunlight simmer across its surface, feeling the sacred stillness that surrounds this divine pool. In that high mountain silence, Gauri Kund reflected not just the sky above, but the devotion in every heart that reached its edge. As my teammates completed the sacred Parikrama and returned to Darchen, our journey together slowly came full circle. The mountain had given us everything it needed to: silence, humility, and grace. Leaving Kailash was not easy. Vehicles rolled away from Darchen and the sacred peaks faded behind us. It felt as though we were leaving a part of ourselves there, offered to the mountains, to the wind, to the divine. Crossing back into Nepal, the familiar world slowly returned. Roads, voices, colors, life in motion. And then Kathmandu, the same city where our journey had begun. But we were not the same. We had carried back with us the stillness of Kailash, the blessings of Manasarovar, and the quiet knowing that the mountain never truly lets you go. As we said our goodbyes to our friends who had become family, to the guides and cooks who cared for us like their own, our hearts were full of gratitude. The journey had ended, but its echo will live within us forever. This journey to Kailash and Manasarovar was more than a pilgrimage. It was a conversation between my soul and the divine. I was seeking the mountain, but what I found was silence, grace, and the deep knowing that everything happens in divine timing. Every delay, every challenge, every moment of stillness carried meaning. The people I met, the laughter we shared, and the prayers we offered, they all became a part of a greater story, one written not by us, but through us. As I return home, I carry the calm of Manasarovar, the strength of Kailash, and the reminder that true pilgrimage never really ends. It continues in every breath, in every act of kindness, and in every step taken with awareness and love.